When the storm stalls overhead, the skies stay gray. Your cells can't find the energy to recover. The fatigue is crushing, unrelenting, and you wake up exhausted. You crash after meals. You need caffeine just to function, and rest doesn't really help. This is the fourth and the final force in the perfect storm, the stalled pressure system. Today, we're talking about metabolic and mitochondrial dysfunction, why you're so tired, and what it actually takes to restore cellular energy. Hi, everyone. Dr. Carol Wada, quadruple board certified allergy, immunology, lifestyle medicine physician. I've dedicated over 15 years of my career helping people with complex immune system conditions. I also live with one. I am a Sjogren's patient myself, and I deeply understand the journey of living with a body that often feels like a complex puzzle. This is episode 5, the final episode of this Perfect Storm series. So we're going to finish strong. If you haven't already, before we dive into today's topic, I want to make sure you have something practical to take with you. So I created a toolkit called the Immune Confidence Storm Tracker. It's your 4R roadmap to recognizing your inflammation triggers and calming the storm. Simple self-assessment, takes about 10 minutes. And it's going to help you pinpoint which of the 4 forces is really stirring up your unique immune storm. You get clarity on where to start calming it even before we dive into the full episode. So we've come a long way in this series. Episode 1, we introduced this concept of the perfect storm and why finding one root cause is way oversimplifying some really complex physiology. Episode 2, we explored the breached levee, barrier breakdown that allows for things in our environment to reach our insides and trigger our immune system and our nervous system. In episode 3, we tackled the shifting winds, the role of our microbiome in dysbiosis that disrupts immune regulation and further damages barriers. Episode 4, we dove into the thunder and lightning, that neuroimmune feedback loop that keeps your body locked in a state of high alert. And now we have arrived at the final force. This is the one that makes the storm feel permanent. And that's because when your cellular energy systems break down, you lose the capacity to heal, and to heal quickly, to heal well. The storm stalls. You're left exhausted. You're left in pain and without the resources to fight your way out. This is metabolic and mitochondrial dysfunction, and it's not just about being tired, it's about why the inflammation becomes chronic, why your immune system can't find balance, and why healing sometimes just feels impossible. So let's break it down. First, I need to introduce you to a concept called immunometabolism. This is the study of how immune cells generate and use energy, and how that energy metabolism affects immune function. Your immune cells, T cells, B cells, macrophages, dendritic cells, they need a huge amount of energy to function. And think about it. When your body is fighting an infection or responding to inflammation, your immune cells need to multiply very rapidly. They need to produce antibody proteins or other inflammatory mediators, which requires machinery being turned on within the nucleus of the cells, engagement of all the cellular machinery. That takes a lot of energy. It needs to travel to the site of injury or infection. It needs to engage in complex signaling, and all of this requires energy, specifically requires ATP. This is the energy currency of our cells. Your cells can make ATP in 2 main ways. Glycolysis, it's quick, doesn't require oxygen, it breaks down glucose for fast energy. It's kind of like kindling, burns hot and fast, but it's not very efficient. You get 2 ATP molecules per glucose molecule. The second is oxidative phosphorylation, and this happens in your mitochondria and requires oxygen, as the name may suggest. It's like burning a hardwood log. It's slower to start, but it's much more efficient, and you get 30 to 36 ATP per glucose molecule. In a healthy state, your immune cells can flexibly switch between these pathways depending on what they need to do. For example, when an immune cell needs to rapidly activate and fight an infection, it shifts to glycolysis for quick energy. When the threat is resolved and it's time to stand down, it shifts back to oxidative phosphorylation. In chronic inflammation and an autoimmune disease, oftentimes this flexibility is lost. So in autoimmune conditions like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, immune cells can get stuck in glycolysis. They're burning through glucose inefficiently, producing inflammatory mediators, and never fully returning to that calmer, more efficient state. At the same time, their mitochondria, those cellular power plants, become more dysfunctional. This creates a vicious cycle. The immune cells can't make enough energy efficiently. They switch to glycolysis, which produces more inflammatory byproducts. The inflammation damages the mitochondria further, and the damaged mitochondria produce even more inflammatory signals. So you're stuck in a metabolic trap. So let's talk specifically about what goes wrong in your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are often called the powerhouses of the cell, but there's so much more than that. They're also regulators of cell death or apoptosis. They produce reactive oxygen species for signaling. They're key players in calcium signaling, and they're hubs for metabolic regulation. So when mitochondria become dysfunctional, several things can happen. First is you can have an excess of reactive oxygen species. Dysfunctional mitochondria produce excessive amounts of these reactive oxygen species, ROS. In small amounts, ROS are very useful for signaling, but in excess, they cause oxidative stress, which can damage mitochondrial DNA, can damage mitochondrial membranes, and other cellular components. The critical part is damaged mitochondria can release mitochondrial DNA into the cytosol or even outside the cell, and your immune system recognizes mitochondrial DNA as a dangerous signal. It's what we call a DAMP, a damage-associated molecular pattern. So now your own cellular damage is triggering immune activation, and this stimulates innate immune receptors and drives type 1 interferon production, which is a key pathway in autoimmune diseases like lupus and Sjogren's. You are literally creating inflammation just by trying to make energy. We also can see defective mitophagy. Now, normally your cells have a quality control system called mitophagy, and it's the process of clearing out old or damaged mitochondria. It's like spring or fall cleaning. In autoimmune conditions, this process becomes defective. So damaged mitochondria accumulate and they keep producing inflammatory signals, including those reactive oxygen species, and that amplifies immune activation and tissue damage. We also see altered T cell metabolism. Remember those regulatory T cells or Tregs? We talked about those a lot back in episode 3. They are the peacemakers of your immune system, and they rely heavily on oxidative phosphorylation. They need healthy mitochondria to function, but pro-inflammatory T cells, Th1, Th17 cells, which drive autoimmunity, prefer glycolysis. So when mitochondrial function is impaired, the balance tips. You get fewer Tregs, more pro-inflammatory effector cells, and the immune system skews towards autoimmunity. We also can see myeloid cell dysfunction. Your myeloid cells are your macrophages and your dendritic cells, and they depend on healthy mitochondrial function too. So when their metabolism is disrupted, they become chronically activated, producing inflammatory cytokines and failing to resolve inflammation properly. This is why you feel like your body is stuck in an inflammatory overdrive. It's not just psychological. It's not all in your head. There is real, measurable metabolic dysfunctioning happening at the cellular level. So let me show you how this all connects back to the other forces we've discussed. The breached levee, the barriers, and the shifting winds, the microbiome, create systemic inflammation. The inflammation activates the thunder and lightning, that neuroimmune chaos. That constant state of high alert from your nervous system and immune system demands massive amounts of energy. Your mitochondria try to keep up, but they're overwhelmed and they start producing more reactive oxygen species, more inflammatory signals, those DAMPs. And this mitochondrial dysfunction further activates immune system and damages your barriers, which creates more inflammation, demands more energy, breaks down your mitochondria more. This is the stalled pressure system, a storm that won't pass. This is why you're so exhausted. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you need to just push through. It's because at the cellular level, your body is running on empty. And the very act of trying to produce energy is making the inflammation worse. So this brings us to the fourth and the final R of the immune confident framework, which is rise. Rising after the storm means restoring your cellular energy systems, means repairing mitochondrial function, rebuilding metabolic flexibility. So what might that look like? So some of it's through nutrition. It's some of the other ways that we're already weaving in through the recognize, reclaim, revel, and rise. Your mitochondria need specific nutrients to function. B vitamins are cofactors for energy production. CoQ10 is critical for the electron transport chain. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions, including ATP production. Alpha-lipoic acid, powerful antioxidant. L-carnitine helps transport fatty acids into the mitochondria for fuel. We also need to support antioxidant systems to reduce oxidative stress. So this is why we sometimes will use N-acetylcysteine or glutathione, vitamin C, vitamin E, and polyphenols from all those plants we were talking about that are helping support the microbiome and the production of those short chain fatty acids. We also can support our mitochondria through lifestyle as we're able to incorporate resistance training. And if you're up for it, a little bit of high intensity interval training can help stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, aka creating more mitochondria. Here's the catch though. If you're deep in mitochondrial dysfunction, intense exercise can backfire. So you need to start where you are. Gentle movement, walking, recumbent bike, yoga. You want to build very gradually. Sometimes we will use heat exposure or cold exposure, depending on the person, to help trigger other mechanisms through heat shock proteins or other mechanisms to help stimulate the development of mitochondria or the elimination of those damaged mitochondria. And there's more research looking at the role of time-restricted eating. Giving your mitochondria a bit of a break from the constant fuel processing can help improve metabolic flexibility. There's also some data looking at other styles of eating. Time-restricted eating is another aspect that comes into the discussion. So this is intermittent fasting, or sometimes even looking at short periods of using ketosis, which is another way your body can use fat for energy production. Part of this is also relying on blood sugar regulation. Unstable blood sugar, so big spikes and crashes, stresses your mitochondria and perpetuates that glycolytic state. So stabilizing blood sugar with balanced meals, balancing protein, healthy fat, and fiber, avoiding ultra-processed carbs, added sugar, refined grains, and eating at regular intervals or even those restricted intervals. Those all can be helpful tools as well. We also have to address underlying exposures and infections that may be contributing to directly damaging mitochondria. So this is where, certain environmental toxins and things can come into the discussion. And nervous system regulation. Again, remember episode 4, nervous system dysregulation directly impairs mitochondrial function as well. So vagal activation, somatic work, sleep hygiene are also really important mitochondrial medicine. I know this feels like a lot. You're already exhausted, but here's the good news. Small, consistent interventions add up. Your body wants to heal. Your mitochondria want to function properly. Well, they may not actually have any conscious thought in it, but when given their opportunity, our body tends to go back to this, this balance point. And so when we remove barriers and provide support, we turn down inflammation, we provide the inputs that are needed, recovery is possible. So let's recap the entire immune confident framework. The roadmap out of the storm. We need to recognize your unique storm pattern. What are your barriers that are leaking? What's driving dysbiosis? How dysregulated is your immune system? How impaired is your metabolic function? This isn't guesswork. It's, digging into your lived experiences and also looking at supportive lab work. We reclaim by rebuilding your foundation. We work to restore barrier integrity, get that microbiome back on track, and give your body the building blocks it needs. We rebel against those old feedback loops. We regulate our nervous system, recalibrate that immune response, and teach our body new patterns. Then we rise, we restore our cellular energy, repair mitochondrial function, rebuild metabolic flexibility, and we rise into vitality. If you've made it through this entire series, I want you to know something. There's a reason you feel the way you do. You're not broken, you're not making it up, and you're not beyond help. The perfect storm is real, and so is a path through it. You don't have to navigate this alone. And when you think of rising after the storm, I want you to think about what that looks like for you. What would it feel like to have your energy back, to think clearly, to feel at home in your body again? That's the vision we're working towards. If you've watched this entire series and you're thinking, this is me, this is exactly what I'm going through, I'm ready for help, here's what I want you to do. First, download our Immune Confident Storm Tracker. This is your 4R framework to recognize your inflammation triggers and calming the storm. It's a free self-assessment tool that will help you identify which of these 4 forces is most active in your storm right now. It takes about 10 minutes, give you clarity on where to start. The link is in the description below, so go grab it now. If you're ready to take the next step, if you're ready to work with someone who understands this complexity, can create a personalized plan for you, I invite you to book a discovery call. You can find the link and the information for that in the description as well. I created the Immune Confident Institute because I was tired of watching smart, capable women like you, like myself, suffer in silence. I was tired of hearing stories of being dismissed by folks who are not willing or able to take the time to connect the dots. I was tired of watching folks spend years and thousands upon thousands of dollars in approaches that only address one piece of the puzzle or send us on a wild goose chase searching for that elusive root cause that's driving everything. You deserve comprehensive, compassionate, evidence-based care. You deserve to feel confident in your body again. I want to thank you for being here through this entire series. I want to thank you for showing up for yourself. Please share this series with anyone you know who's dealing with chronic symptoms and looking for answers. Leave a comment below. Let me know where you are on your journey. Which R do you feel called to focus on right now? Is it recognize, reclaim, rebel, rise, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be creating more content to support you on this path because the storm is real, but so is the calm that follows. I'll see you soon. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.